gate. Braum is denied to Fnatic.
Taken away, and that's one we didn't really pick too much up on, as we were talking at least, is that Braum pick had such high priority in the last series for Fnatic and for H2K just in general. So a big number of picks we were expecting to be gone are already taken from this game.
Yeah, the Nidalee also being banned up against Jankos. We were talking about how maybe H2K will prioritize those junglers coming in to this champion select, and throughout the whole series, since they are always going to be on the blue side, Zed is the next ban, followed by Lucian out from Fnatic.
And this is something we were actually discussing now back before the show, is do we see Lucian bans come out from Fnatic? And, you know, we were thinking about that because just of how H2K with the Sivir really weren't effective. It either forces H2K to pick it now or give it to Fnatic in the first rotation. Ekko is still available in this pick and ban. We've still had some priority on the support with the bans, but there are a couple available that we've seen come out. Fnatic may be getting a little pinched in that regard, though.
And of course, talking about some of the other meta picks and the fact that H2K went for that first pick Sivir last weekend, it didn't work out for them. It could be that trap card, that Pulse we were mentioning before we went into picks and bans. The last ban is a Twisted Fate, once again targeted towards H2K, and now they're put in a difficult position. Will they lock in a jungle, a top, or that Sivir, the top line ADC? Very
interesting we see the TF rather than the Lissandra. Lissandra is a little bit better at, you know, coming in and setting up team fights properly. But Lissandra going to be available for H2K should they want to go for it. That Ekko was passed over in the first pick.
So interesting. First pick's actually going to be Kindred, and now do Fnatic just pick up Ekko?
And I like this decision actually by H2K. They give Jankos a strong champion, and Odoamne, his Ekko wasn't particularly impressive in that last series anyway, so they don't have the rush to pick that up. I expect Odo to have really bolstered his performance on Ekko in this series, and I expect to see them pick it later. But as for last week, it wasn't great.
That's actually real smart. So Gamsu is going to be picking up the Ekko here. He did have a couple good games on that champion in the last series they played, though, and that's going to be paired with Trundle coming out as well.
And now this you might look at and say, well, that's got to be Trundle support. That's got to be Ekko top, right? Wrong. SKT earlier today, Faker pulled out the AP Ekko mid. We've seen Trundle in both roles. Double flex coming out from Fnatic. They have the last pick in this game, and they will be able to decide those solo lanes later on in this draft.
Very important being on that red side. It has somewhat taken me by surprise with the Lucian banned out, not picking Sivir first rotation, knowing that Ekko was up, Maokai was up. These are these top priority champions in that top lane. H2K have now got their backs against the wall. They've stolen away the Kindred. This was a champion that I want to see Jankos perform on, because he's only played 2 games all year on that champion and has trended away from it. And in the last few seconds, will steal away the Thresh and lock in that Maokai. So we're still sticking to the trends that the EU LCS has shown to be powerful.
Again, H2K, though, are in a kind of a rough situation playing this dangerous game, because now you pick Maokai. The Trundle matchup is available. The Ekko matchup is available. Both of these matchups are good for Fnatic, regardless of how they choose this to go. You can see Fnatic, they've decided their AD carry. There's still a lot of options available for them. Support not picked up unless that Trundle is going down there. Again, so much versatility now on the Fnatic side.
Man, but you can just see the priority in where H2K lies right now, because they're focusing it towards the jungler and not top lane anymore.
They've done it again. I mean, this isn't... You wouldn't expect the Graves to go top, but it's another pick. But if something in this last rotation goes crazy and they need to abort mission, they can change it around. I'm expecting that to go to Spirit, though, with Kindred gone and the Nidalee banned away. This is his kind of champion. He can farm up for a little while, get massive damage and massive impact in fights.
And now there is an opportunity for Jankos to try and take over some of this early game. We'll see if he can get his hands there. Febiven, he's been pushed in the champion zone, but Sivir is available all the way down to the last rotation. If Febiven wants to go for it, he went 1 and 3 during the semi-final against Origin, and instead will lock in Kalista. So it's going to go a slightly different route. Ryu, one last pick. It will be potentially blind pick, should be, and it will be that power pick Ryze, which has come to fruition in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's going to be Ryze going into the middle lane as well. So now we get to see where the puzzle pieces lie. No priority in Sivir in this entire draft. And keep in mind, Sivir up until this game was 100% pick and ban in the playoffs here in Europe. And neither of these teams want to take it. We know H2K struggled with it. They want the Kalista instead, a team-fighting AD carry. They've got a Maokai, they've got a Thresh. They're looking to pick people off, and now they've got some Ryze for extra scaling.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting if they lock in the Azir in mid lane. A lot of people have been talking about how Ryze is actually good into that matchup, and some have argued against it as well. So we'll see what that that one is, because as you mentioned, there's so many flex picks on Fnatic, it couldn't really be anything here. Glad to see Ryze come back in, the Machine Gun Caster back in the mid lane.
Yeah, and in the last few seconds, Fnatic most likely going to switch away. I think the majority of voices we've spoken to feel that Ryze does well into Azir, and Febiven says, I cannot. He dares to challenge and locks in the Azir to complete the Fnatic comp.
Now, this for Febiven has not been the best pick for him. He's only really played a handful of games, and his Azir KDA coming into last week's games was 0 in the previous game. It was actually his worst performance since week 6, so let's see, with the home crowd behind him now, if he can use a tank buster of Azir to break through Odoamne's Maokai.
It's going to be very challenging, because one big difference I see between these team compositions, H2K can point, click, and kill anything they want, whereas Fnatic is a lot more situational. They need the right angles for the Trundle pillars. They need the right, parallel convergences for Gamsu's Ekko to set it up. And it's going to be a lot more tricky on the Fnatic camp.
It is, and Fnatic are going to need a little bit of extra time as well. Not only does Azir need the time, Ezreal needs to stack himself up. And typically teams that have had that, as a weakness in the playoffs have been very slow out of the gate. They're not really getting the objectives very early on. So if we end up in a lane swap, maybe we'll see it.
Yeah, but a lot of this is going to be on Febiven's shoulders in terms of late game damage, and if there's any time to turn up, it's here in Rotterdam for him.
Yeah, especially sitting in his hometown, in front of the Dutch crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time on the third place battle, jump onto Twitter and let us know who you think will be victorious. Will it be H2K with hashtag H2K win?
Or will it be Fnatic with hashtag FNC win?
We're going to have to find out as we get into this game. The crowd is hyped for this series. We're getting ready to head on to the ring.
Armed and ready for this third place deciding match between H2K and Fnatic. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see where the cookie crumbles. Lane swap or head-to-head lanes? That's going to be my first question. And it seems like Fnatic have grouped themselves up in the top quadrant of the jungle. Maybe going to get some early information here.
Oh, look at that, Jankos already with the extra damage on Spring. You can see why they put the priority on him getting a good pick in the jungle, but it's jokes, but it's really going to pay big dividends in this series.
Yeah, we will have to see how that affects things. Of course, both, Spirit likes to farm. Jankos typically is, that first blood king. We'd love to see him get involved in the action. And, Kindred, Maokai, it's a pretty good pairing to get early damage and early kills, potentially in a gank if we end up in standard lanes, but it is not going that way. You can see how Gamsu is headed down to the bottom lane, and a kind of an interesting point here. Typically, over the last few weeks when we've seen lane swap wards put down, normally they've covered every single entrance to the bottom lane, and it allows you to spot out a lane swap very early on. This time there is no ward hugging the base wall or the inner tower in the bottom lane here for H2K, so they won't have the vision. Then again, neither will Fnatic. Looks like we're ending up in Australia lanes.
Yeah, it does seem to be the case. So H2K may be calling Fnatic's bluff, anticipating the move and sending Febiven and Vander up top, so we will get somewhat traditional lanes despite them being inverted. And also important to note, as we are early on, double teleports on the side of H2K versus no teleports in the mid lane for Fnatic. I want to see how H2K play the side lanes in the early game, because they were overly aggressive in their semi-final, and it was very sloppy and very messy.
But in this kind of situation for H2K, this is where they want to be. We had Vander as a guest on the analyst desk last week, specifically talking about how Fnatic's weakness has been their bottom lane, getting caught out in standard lanes and getting pushed in. Fnatic like to drag their bottom lane to the middle lane very early on, so knowing Vander knows that weakness, look at how aggressive Vander is being, zoning Fnatic off the Krugs here, but he is taking damage in response.
Yeah, it's interesting. Fnatic backed away from the Krug there just to try and push him away, and so Vander just straight up stopped him by himself in that one.
Yeah, manages to interrupt. Vander not running Exhaust either. So I'm keeping track on these summoner spells. We'll find out how impactful that Exhaust is later in the game. And wind speakers on Ryze.
Yes, so Ryze...
Storm Raiders.
Storm Raiders, that's where I was going to go. Yeah. Ryze deals a lot of damage very quickly to people, so you get to proc that very effectively. Also, Ryze just benefits off movement speed, being able to keep chasing people down. But the effect of what Vander did there in the top lane was actually get the level too early. It meant that Fnatic couldn't really do too much. Then again, they have an Ezreal. You don't really want to go aggressive on a Kalista this early on. So H2K will be fairly happy with the lead that they've got themselves so far in that top lane.
I just want to see how much Febiven can do up there, because you put Febiven and Vander in a straight-up 2-on-2 lane, they will do some work. And against Rekkles, who honestly is a pretty passive player with Klaj in that lane, I think they could do some real work. Jankos already invading the enemy jungle, just trying to find Spirit, trying to find something, hopping over the wall. He knows this is getting taken, so he's going to be poking Spirit a little. But just contesting this crow, this might goes down. Jankos is out of there.
Yeah, Spirit didn't have his smite available. It was coming up just as Jankos hit his, so easy smite away. That's going to slow Spirit down just a touch, but also now Jankos, he's a bit afraid to go into his own jungle now. He's like, uh-oh, there's a Kindred somewhere in here. I can't really stick around too much.
Yeah, decides to play that one a little safe. Have a first glance of this mid lane matchup, even as far as the farm is concerned. Ryu's already back to pick up what is a very early tier, teleport down. And he's just going to continue stacking that and farming it up while Febiven and Vander, they're shoving away with him. This is what we've seen time and time again out of H2K in standard lanes.
It is. I mean, H2K are dominant in standard lanes. Febiven normally at that 10-minute mark averages about a 9 CS lead up on his lane opponent in standard lanes when we looked at the games. And they actually get so much presence in this lane, so much dominance, that when it comes to their pushing, in the 11 standard games for H2K, 6 of H2K's 9 first towers were taken by Febiven. That is the most of any player we've got here in the EU LCS.
And that strength of H2K in pushing the lanes, getting a tower down, will in theory be exemplified by Fnatic because they are a reactive bottom lane. They're already seeing some pressure on these crabs. Jankos actually picked up his first passive stack earlier in the game, and with that Scuttle Crab being killed, it'll at least deny one of those spawns for Jankos. Already showing up just a little earlier than he did in the semi-finals.
Spirit also pushing into the enemy jungle as well, so he's not just going to sit back and allow Jankos to take all of his camps. And now he's just trying to track him through the jungle. So he places the first ward down. He's got the Razor Sharp buff, and they will be meeting each other here very briefly, you would think. He's now backing away.
The problem here, though, is if Odo comes up and catches out Spirit in the jungle, there is a lot of damage on Jankos still, even though it's early on in this. Spirit, however, is going to find the time to recall out. Problem is, if Odo goes across, and Jankos somehow gets himself, Spirit gets himself away, Gamsu will get so much experience advantage down in the bottom lane. He's got a good lead as it is.
There's that ward we just saw getting placed down from Spirit, so we're going to see that early information go over to Fnatic, so at least they have a general idea of where Jankos is. They know that he's in the top sides of the map right now. There's no crabs, so he's not going there, so he has two options. He either goes for his Grump or he goes into the jungle, and Spirit knows this.
And at this point, really, unless Spirit can get some presence on the top side of the map, which is why you can see Jankos here trying to at least track Spirit and see where he is, there's no real respite for Rekkles and Klaj unless Febiven and Vander recall, because look at the advantage they've got. Look at how far up in the lane the H2K duo are sitting. They are really forcing Rekkles to Q farm and try and get anything that he can, and it's got to a point where we're already 10 CS up for H2K.
And we just caught a glimpse of Jankos again aggressively invading, trying to challenge for some of Spirit's camps, but on the side of the map where his duo is, enabling Febiven and Vander to play as aggressive as they currently are. Jankos gone for the skirmisher saber, Spirit the trackers, so first items completed in the jungle, or moving their way in that direction. And I want to reiterate, when H2K were playing somewhat standard in Australia lanes in the semi-finals, their tower dives in the first two games were very messy, very uncoordinated. They gave Origin time to respond. Then later in the series, when H2K were meant to dive, they were then too scared because of all the sloppiness and the mistakes. So I want to see how much they can improve from last week to this week, Pulse.
But they just need to go back to the regular season H2K, because they were an entirely different team. You're just seeing how hard that matchup is for Maokai in the bottom lane. But here they've had more time to prepare as well, and Klaj getting dragged in the top lane. This is a really brutal lane, and the Ren hasn't even come out yet. There it is, and you see how low it takes him. Just need to see H2K come back on form. So far, looking pretty good.
And in this situation, you know, a lot of people have talked about how Thresh typically isn't the best support. We had a lot of support bans in this matchup, and we're seeing that even Vander on this Thresh into Klaj, he just lands one hook, the damage goes down, still got the potency as ever, it's just not top tier.
No, not this time around. Febiven's being run down by Ryu, the power's been unleashed. Febiven will just slide and glide his way out. Fan vote on the side of Fnatic, no real surprises there. But we're even, as close as it can be in the opening minutes. Nobody has made a major mistake yet, with the exception of Rekkles being bullied in this lane but you kind of expect it in that matchup.
Also in the mid lane as well, you can see why Ryze is good into Azir, because it doesn't matter if you're kind of long range, Ryze is going to run at you and you're going to have to run away, and at some point he's going to catch up and just hit you with 5 or 6 spells and you just simply lose the trade. You can't deal as much damage as him in a shorter time frame.
But the one thing you do have to really warrant is that Azir is fairly free to farm at this point.
Oh, defensive flash from Klaj. Ignite wasn't thrown down though, so flash blown.
Yeah, yes he is, Stress.
Yeah, and there's been a fair amount of you know, presence when it comes to the damage going down onto Ryu. Forced him back. Even used the teleport to come back. Febiven is up in this lane by about 2 waves of creeps as well. So despite even going back himself, Febi is in a good spot right now. And to be honest, Fnatic need that. And this is what we were talking about. This relentless pressure in the top lane. Again results in the first tower in a standard lanes matchup for H2K going to Forgiven. Just push, push, push all day long. Get that advantage and crack Fnatic open.
All right, cracking Fnatic open. Febiven's used the Emperor's Divide, but Ryu's not locked in. Flashes over the pillar. The chase is coming in from Fnatic. Throws in the soldiers, and first blood to Fnatic.
First blood from that middle lane. It goes over to Spirit, and that could be such a crucial part here, because Spirit, we know how much Fnatic are going to have to rely now on his damage. They've got an Ezreal still needing time. The Azir is still powering up. Get some of that earlier damage down onto the Graves and get yourself into the mix.
Jankos is heading into the mid lane also with Vander, so maybe trying to set up a play here. Vander's in the bush, charging up the Q. Depth Sentence doesn't land today onto Febiven. He'll be backing off. And honestly, H2K not missing a beat so far. Picked up 4 pink wards. They just placed 1 down, and will be continuing to do that. Odoamne clearing 1 in the bottom lane, Vander clearing 1 in the top jungle, and complete vision control over H2K.
It's really well set up. This is one of the things that I wanted to see from Fnatic. Good coordination and synergy, because it's a difficult CC to land.
I don't know about Ryu running an obstacle course, but he had to go around a wall, around a pillar, up and over, and he still ended up falling in that. But H2K do have double teleport advantage right now, so I'm kind of expecting Fnatic to attack one of those, kind of similarly to how Gamsu's doing in the bottom lane, but bring more people in at some point and really attack that. We spoke about how Fnatic like to bring their bottom lane to the mid lane. This is around the time they do it, but that's only really when they have side lane presence, and without a teleport on Azir, you have to leave the Azir in the middle lane.
And I think we have to talk about the tank battle as we catch a glimpse of Amazing and Perk sitting side by side, and Mithy getting some information ahead of tomorrow's final.
Well, you know, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So
That's it, finding out some information. Glad to see them in the crowd watching, but Gamsu's been bullying Odoamne the entirety of this match. Plus 10 CS, shoving Odo in over and over and over. And this is a good sign for Fnatic, with Febiven being ahead, with Gamsu being ahead, even though Rekkles is down. He's more of a utility ADC that will scale later into the game. Hopefully his front line will buy him all the time he needs.
But look at this giant valley that is opening up between Forgiven and Rekkles. I mean, it was manageable at first, but because we spoke about how Fnatic's weakness is their duo lane getting caught in these standard lanes, they picked themselves into this corner with Azir, who is just a pick that has to sit mid. You have to clear mid. You cannot really move into a side lane. Otherwise, what H2K do is, as soon as he pushes slightly too far up, 2 TPs come down, that's a dead Azir. He's never getting away. So, you know, Fnatic have to be careful how they play around this. They have to slow H2K's pace down, and that is by buying a little bit more freedom for their duo lane. The warding you can see from Fnatic is so heavily focused on that top side where they want Rekkles to sit.
That's actually a really good point, because we've seen so many teams fail with Azir in playoffs, because he's a really difficult champion to play around. You've got to go like 1-3-1 and play a different style entirely, and we've seen teams just fall apart. So in this game, they're in a much better place because they have a good foundation, as Febiven is already ahead of a matchup that should have been bad for him.
I think, though, there is a difference when you look at Febiven playing on the Azir to, with no disrespect, Lukeduck's Azir sits fairly far back in the lane, and that was one of the drawbacks for Vitality, is when playing with this, they just didn't have presence to move forward, whereas Febiven, he's always constantly trying to trade in lane, constantly trying to get himself ahead and push back against H2K.
And the moment he's not pushing forward, brings in some friends to play in the middle lane. Klein Spirit with a good roam. Jankos was able to pick up the first Rift Herald here in Rotterdam, and will be pushing aggressively to once again enable Forgiven to play forward, to farm safely.
And Fnatic, for a second there, slipped back into old habits by bringing Rekkles down, and what this means is they actually lost control of the easy path to top lane here. You can see Vander managed to pressure them out with Jankos, and now Fnatic have only just got up to the top side to defend. Ryu just used his teleport to come back, but this Rift Herald push coming from H2K is going to be difficult to stop.
A lot of pressure coming out. The Death Sentence didn't land, so Fnatic can go a little further forwards and clear out these caster minions. Remember, because that's Herald, no extra tanking that, so that will dissipate real fast, and H2K have to back away. Didn't get a lot of chip damage on that tower.
Not a huge amount, but we needed to take some stock of the situation. Fnatic are still marginally down on gold, despite having first blood. Spirit is farming up a Storm, plus 20 over Jankos. That's great in the jungle, and he's not really been needed. And then obviously the advantages for Febiven and Gamsu over their opposite numbers. It's going to be an interesting mid-game with all these lane shenanigans, considering the power is in such different areas of the map.
Yeah, for now it's going to rest a lot more on Forgiven's shoulders, and you know, it was so interesting, the discovery, which took me a moment to internalize when Tafisio was talking about this, is like, Forgiven actually hasn't won a playoff series. And to put that kind of pressure now, H2K, on this early game, we know Forgiven is exceptionally strong when it comes to his presence in lane, but now once this game opens up, how's he going to do in team fights? There was that discussion, you know, H2K's team fighting was kind of lackluster, and part of that was Forgiven. Will we see that come and undo H2K once again here?
This will be a stun here in the bottom lane. It would at least stun Odoamne to fight Gamsu for a couple seconds. But he is Maokai, and he's actually winning against Ekko with a last auto attack who grasps for the Undying. He jumps back in with phase dive, now even up the trade. But Odoamne actually winning in that one-on-one.
Yeah, for now, of course, when you're playing into the Maokai matchup, it means that Ekko has to take up that Spectre's cowl early. He'll sit on the cowl and just have that and go then the Sunfire Iceborne route. So it does mean that Gamsu's actual presence in trading is a little lower now.
Oh, Ryu's in some trouble. Cell just go up. Early cleanse from Febiven, and he'll slide away. Ryu putting the stamp on who owns the 1v1.
I'll be honest, I don't think Ryu knew his own strength, because that last overload hit, and he was like, oh, I actually could have killed him if I wasn't going for these minions, and he had flash. So Febiven will have to go back to base, and he gets the push, but still.
Yeah, cleanse down. There's a cannon minion wave denied, and some damage placed onto the tower. So Ryu, despite not getting the kill, will do quite a lot of control and some damage. Already getting closer to the Rod of Ages, and this is a very scary champion if he is not controlled in these team fights.
But what that means for now is Febiven will have to drop back in the lane. Without cleanse, you can't afford to get rune prisoned and take a full combo. It'll be so easy for Jankos to just come mid if Azir steps too far forward now, and Febi doesn't want to succumb to that fate. He doesn't want to be the first member of his team to fall on home turf. That's not the kind of play that you want to come out, and I'm pretty sure Febi is not going to let that happen.
Not at all. H2K constantly staying on the toes, constantly making plays. They were pinging the bottom tower, and they also went for Dragon, so they have Forgiven setting the wave, so that Vander and Jankos, after taking the Dragon, can conveniently just arrive and take the tower.
So H2K have got the first Rift Herald, they've got the first Dragon, they've got the first tower. They're going to get themselves the second tower as well. Yes, Fnatic secured a good kill onto Ryu in the mid lane, but truthfully the map is everything about H2K. Second one has fallen, and they've extended this marginal gold lead.
But we can't neglect to look at the farm difference, because although we were talking about how H2K is so good with the objectives, Fnatic in this setup have been able to get themselves previously a gold lead. Now they're going to re-establish it with this tower going down. It's a fairly even back and forth game. First tower goes for Fnatic.
But H2K, while all that was happening, was still pushing the bottom lane. There was still a minion wave there. And Fnatic, yes, they respond with an outer, but they're just simply too slow. And this tower will fall. There's plenty of minions there.
Absolutely no contest from Fnatic. They are behind the tempo of the play. H2K have managed to secure an additional tower at the cost of one outer. Odo's caught the wave up top, and H2K plays a lot of good vision inside that right quadrant of the jungle before they maybe group middle to see if they can set up some additional pressure on Febiven's tower.
Yeah, it's pretty much the only place that H2K can go right now. No Rift Herald, no Dragon. They've taken both of those off the map already. And now we're in a situation where for Forgiven and the rest of H2K, they're going to look towards the mid tower, but the problem is you've got to go through the Azir to do that, and that is very difficult to do. At this point, I mean, Febi, his cleanse is coming back up fairly soon. He's going to be able to push the wave back, you know, somewhat effectively, and you've got Spirit there for wave clear as well. It'll be tough to push the top inner as well, because Gamsu, we've spoken about this, one of the only tanks that really has the ranged wave clear on Ekko with his Time Winder, so you can push the wave back preemptively and stop people from pushing into your tower.
That's actually very important for Fnatic if they want to continue to stall the game out. Take a look at your itemization as we continue to scale up at 17 minutes. Another bunch of ping boards inside the H2K inventories. Not seeing quite as many from Fnatic as they start Herald, Rod, Blade of the Ruined King, Man Immune, so everybody's starting to scale up, and we could have some very explosive team fights.
And I like this out of Fnatic, utilizing the timer that they had on the Rift Herald. Of course, everybody gets it now, as of a long time ago. So what Fnatic did was say, well, H2K only got 2 places to go. Let's make it 1 place, and let's make it really difficult for them. Let's take away the Rift Herald. Do not allow them to push with that. We'll take it for ourselves and see what we can get done.
Well, it's like the Hurricane coming out from Jankos, seeing that build more and more nowadays, but it just kind of shows his mindset. It's like, I'm a carry now in this game, rather than being a facilitator in the jungle. So he's trying to get those stacks, trying to kill people, and trying to hit multiple people.
And you know, a lot of the times we see the Hurricane, there is always the Sterix Gauge option as well. This Hurricane obviously allows you to stack up on people during a fight, assists in wave clear as well, which is something that H2K do need a little bit of a hand with. Kalista fairly short range, Ryze fairly short range when it comes to his wave clear, and you have to basically use the ultimate to do it as well. So now just a little bit extra on top of that from Jankos, from Odoamne, gonna help them out.
It's just interesting because it pushes back more Sterix, obviously, in this game, and especially when you have an Azir mid lane where most of that damage is going to come out from him, as you just saw in the mid lane as test subject Ryu walks up to him. And now he'll walk back to base. But yeah, so he needs that more at some point, but he's going to be doing damage for now. He's got Lance Respite anyway.
Yeah, we'll see how effectively Jankos can make use of it, because this is another game.
Oh, that's a dangerous
very
TP.
little impact. TP will complete from Ryu. Soldiers get thrown into his face. I'm looking for support in the mini-map. Nobody has responded. So the tower stands, but that was brave from Ryu.
Kind of interesting. Febi did only have 1 Arise, so couldn't get both onto the tower, which pretty much would have killed it at this point and made that teleport null and void. But Fnatic didn't want to commit. They didn't have the vision around the river and the entrances to mid to really go aggressive onto that tower. We've been overstepping.
Small skirmish maybe opening up. Ooh, Jankos, 2 spear soldiers onto him. A lot of damage comes out, but he'll be backing off briefly, and H2K just pushing up the mid lane. They won't be able to siege because Febiven's there with Spirit, and Jankos will back into his jungle, probably looking up onto the stage from the sidelines. And Ryu finding
game
Klaj.
to watch. Exhaust has been used. Klaj very much afraid of those overloads. Will throw down the summoner spell, so that's one of them removed if any shenanigans were to break out. And that is potentially what H2K are looking for. I feel they're in a pretty good position right now. A lot of power stacking up. Ryu has found Febi. Emperor's Divine is flashed over. Febi's going to run for his life, but the hook!
The death sentence lands, but it's not going to result in anything because Spirit's there to cover Febiven as his bodyguard, and they'll have to back away. That will diffuse the situation.
Spirit with the potency of the damage right now, and we saw Prolly looking at this game. He'll be happy that he's brought H2K to the point in this game where they've utilized their strength, that 2v2, but now it's all on H2K as a team to figure out which fights are worth taking and how to take them, because that's been H2K's weakness, and it could have gone that way again as Ryu was stepped into parallel convergence.
Yeah, I think Ryu actually stepped forward. He's like, the pillar's behind me, I dare you, Klaj. Come at me, bro. And obviously, without the stun landing from Ekko, meant Ryu was able to get away clean. So we're 21 minutes in. Still just a single kill on the board, but a number of skirmishes across the map. I think Devourer was upgraded there for Jankos a little while ago, became sated. And H2K still ahead in the majority of the objectives when it comes to the towers, the dragon, the heralds, etc. Let's see if they can continue to press the lead, because they've not been able to crack open this mid lane counter turret because of how well Febi's controlled that lane.
Even though it's been 21 minutes, though, we're hitting breaking point because you're seeing a lot of skirmishes go on. A lot of people are kind of itchy to get into a fight. Dragons now spawning. More objectives on the board are starting to open up for people to contest. So we're going to start seeing some bloody fights very shortly.
There are only a few members of Fnatic that are easily locked down, whereas Vander...
Oh, he's on the wrong side. Throws out a death sentence to buy some time. Teleport cancelled by Odo. And there was a kill elsewhere on the map as Rekkles
Completed by Gamsu!
1v1!
Oh man, Jankos, he's going to have to flash away, and Gamsu is not arranged to follow up. Febiven was also there to back him up, so they will back away very briefly.
Odo cancelled, Gamsu didn't, and looked to go aggressive on a different part of the map. I was looking for where Gamsu actually arrived, and always looking for those kills on a low health, but obviously with that Lamb's Respite available, it's a little bit more difficult to kill than you would normally expect.
Yeah, of course, Jankos was able to 1v1 Rekkles.
Oh, here comes Odo!
Caught in the middle!
Flash over the wall, and roots down Febiven, but he's out of the slide and glide back to Klaj, and he's still safe. So many close calls in this game.
It really, really is. Balancing on a knife edge. Pulse, you mentioned the fights were going to get bloody and exciting, and they started off with 22 minutes. H2K, they're going for a Baron already. The rest of Fnatic can respond, but this is going to be close.
Yeah, it's going to be close, but H2K, they've got the Kalista.
Spirit over the wall, he's trying to blind some targets. Hook doesn't land, tries to steal the collateral damage, and Febiven, he's going to secure it. Two-shot barrage doesn't take anyone down, and H2K get away with murder.
Fnatic had absolutely no time to respond. H2K sneak that Baron from under Fnatic's nose. We're going to go all the way back to the team fight that set this one up. Stress, top of your screen, there's Jankos and Rekkles.
Yeah, this is Jankos and Rekkles. We actually didn't see that kill initially, and that's what pulled Jankos so far up. You can see that was where Gamsu was trying to go aggressive afterwards, but you know, Fnatic, they're going to take a dragon in exchange for the Baron going over to H2K. H2K will favor that time and time again. This is what they want. They want to be able to keep pushing on this map.
I'm going to go ahead and say not worth for Fnatic on that one. Not a trade you won at 23 minutes into the game. And it was literally just from chunking down Febiven. You don't always have to kill your target to open up pressure on the map, and H2K identified that. And this is one of the signs to me in this series that H2K really are on the ball.
I already feel like H2K are reading the map and the game somewhat better than what they were last week. Now, in that 5-game series, they were a little bit slower. Jankos is caught by the pillar. Will be able to find the lantern from Vander, jump out to safety, but the tower is down. So all outers for Fnatic are knocked over. There's Baron pushing minions in multiple lanes, and H2K have stamped some control and authority across the entire map again.
Yeah, just go back to that point, QuickShot. I really feel that was the problem that H2K had. The further the series went on, they were making aggressive plays, and then they stopped because there were a lot of hesitation. They didn't pull the trigger. In Game 5 of that series, they 100% would not have pulled the trigger on a play like that.
And of course, looking at the games last week, H2K felt like they tunneled on the kills.
Yeah.
They were looking for the tower dives. They were looking, hey, see hero, kill hero. And it didn't work for them. Today, game 1 of this series, H2K say, see tower, take tower. See herald, take herald.
Yeah.
Hey, Baron's free too, I'll have one of those.
Yeah, we'll see whether they're doing that seafood diet in the end, because they may not be so svelte afterwards if that's the case. I know Itzba normally has them on a pretty strict regime for that, but they've seen another tower, Trevor. They've taken it down with that Baron buff push.
Very, very well played from H2K. 2,600 gold in their Baron power play. Still available in all 5 members, 45 seconds before it times out. So the numbers are on the top of your screen. And of course, H2K. This is a long series. It is a best of 5. And these teams are fighting for championship points, fighting for a shot, one step closer to get towards the World Championships at the end of the year.
And there's something actually with Fnatic in a best of 5 that I've noticed is game 1 is normally a little bit of a feeling out process. Normally where they've run the Kassadin, see what they can get away with in a game, see how passive they can play, and Febiven.
They don't want you to make a point.
Fnatic will increase the pace gradually throughout a best of 5 if they need to.
I concur.
Yeah,
I concur.
I was just waiting for another skill shot to like almost kill Febiven.
I pieced out. I was like, that's all I'm saying. I'll get back to this later.
All right, well, we will follow up with that point a little bit later. Because Fnatic have to play from behind. They've got a lot of wave clear with Ekko, with Graves, the Azir, obviously a little bit from Ezreal as well, but another Baron makes it significantly harder to clear out those minion waves. H2K, both teleports still available. We've not seen any teleport plays. One of them was cancelled in the jungle, but that's something I'd like to see how H2K can unlock the deeper parts of Fnatic's map.
And that's one of the things, really, is the only places that Ryu has really used his teleport is getting back to lane. It's always been, well, I'm just going to keep my lane alive, keep it going. Now Ryu's over in the side lane, pushes it out. So it's H2K's prerogative to try and look for a weak spot if the Azir, if the Ezreal are pushed further up in the lane than they should be. Slam those 2 TPs down, get yourself into the fight, and crack open Fnatic once again.
But that's been like the old joke, right? It's just like, yeah, I run TP to get to lane faster. But in this game, it's actually really good because he's been able to put pressure on Febiven. And while Febiven's still in a really good place, now we're getting into that mid-game and going back to some of the questions we were asking very early on whether Fnatic can play around the Azir correctly. That's what we're about to find out. But this has definitely been an H2K game where 3 kills in almost 30 minutes.
Yeah, it definitely has been an H2K game when you look at it. But Fnatic, not to be outdone, have said, okay, well, we're going to slow your push by putting up the Azir Sun Disc in the middle lane, and I'm going to slow you down for a bit.
All right, so take stock of the time, and we'll find out how much time it'll buy Fnatic. As Jankos and Vander are teaming up again. This time is to provide some support to Ryu, pushing in the top lane. Some slightly different boot enchantments than I'm used to. Alacrity on both Odo and Jankos. Make sure they can lock down the very slippery Fnatic team composition. And at nearly 30 minutes into the game, 2, 3 items are being completed on a lot of these carries. It's going to be very scary if somebody's out of position or makes a mistake.
But a lot of these items for Fnatic, looking for Jankos. Ryu comes in from the top.
He's going in, he's gone out.
A lot of these items for Fnatic are all about, you know, the ability to either kite or move faster, get away, disengage. There's a Ryze here. You've got 2 Iceborne Gauntlets. You've got a Blade of the Ruin King. It's not often used for that, but at the same time, everything is going to help Fnatic distance themselves slightly. Plus the Azir ultimate, if H2K don't absolutely...
94 gold in the bank.
If H2K don't lock somebody down quickly, Fnatic have the chance to run.
All right, have the chance, and they're going to have to be running for their lives for a little bit longer, because H2K are playing on the front for Gamsu and Odo. They're going to go toe-to-toe. Iceborne and Spirit Visage for Gamsu, but he does not want it. He instantly backs away, despite what looked to be control and zoning earlier on. He's the one playing defensively now.
Really weird. I see both of the junglers coming to the bot lane, so I did have a point about Maokai, but we're going to have a fight instead. Gamsu, Q's going to land, Arcane Smash, Jankos is coming in, marks him with the E, and now he'll back away because Maokai wants farm. And they'll back off. But to talk about Maokai Ekko, it's a really interesting matchup because Ekko generally should win that lane. There's a lot of times where he's just straight up stronger, like he can farm from range, he can poke from range. Maokai just can't get in range of him. But then when you hit certain item break points, like when Odoamne had a full item versus Gamsu, Maokai can actually trade against him. And then when Gamsu starts completing items, which is around about now, he should be able to trade back. So it's interesting that he backed away from that fight.
And the thing is, Gamsu, something which isn't always standard, he's actually completed the Spirit Visage before a Senpai cape. A lot of times, as I was saying, we kind of see them sit just on Spectre's cowl, so never really underestimate that. But it's the Dragon attempt from Jankos. Here comes Fnatic.
Parallel convergence between Jankos has to dance of arrows over the wall. Vander looks for a death sentence, finds it onto Klaj, but decides not to reactivate. Dragon secured by Fnatic. That is the second of the game. Allows them to get that damage over time onto some towers, but it could be a sign that the control is shifting. Fnatic, back-to-back Dragon.
Look at what H2K have done, though. They've said, okay, we'll give you the Dragon, but we're going to push with Ryu in the top lane. Look, it's pushed all the way to the inhibitor tower, and nobody has gone to defend it. Odo on the bottom side has pushed out as well. Only one member of Fnatic has a teleport. They cannot defend both waves at the same time, so at a minimum, they're going to lose one of the waves' worth of experience.
While it seemed like Fnatic had the tempo, H2K were literally dancing around like a bull in a matador, because Fnatic, they were all in a group, and H2K was like, fine, we'll just push top, we'll push bottom. We see you going for Baron, but we have TP on Ryu. We can stop you if we want.
And the other thing that, of course, pushing the side lanes is going to do is open up this Baron pit for H2K. They have so much more vision on the map with that present Spirit. Ooh, that's a lot of damage.
Yes, it is. Out from Jankos by himself. He actually jumps over the pillar into 2 people. He knows that Vander's there with the Dark Patches to save him.
And the teleport comes down for Odo onto the back line.
But here comes Gamsu.
Spirit, the low and not around. This could be trouble. There is a Kalista on the Baron, looking for the fight. Fnatic decide to engage. It's secured by H2K.
And Febiven will pick it up. Empress Divine comes out and Febiven's onto him. They will be trading back. Vander is fighting in the bottom side, but Jankos is the first to fall. Ryze's being chased after. Gamsu's coming in for the kill.
They've traded back and forth, but Febiven is still alive. He's flashed forward for Febiven, and Febiven's taken him down. It's a double kill for Febiven as Gamsu's trying to chase down Odo. 4 members of H2K are dead, only with the cost of 3 members for Fnatic. But H2K secured the Baron and the gold. Fnatic win the fight.
Fnatic turn that fight around. What looked like an almost certain Baron for H2K. Well, it was. It goes to them, but they've only got it on one person. H2K wanted to peel back, but the problem, look at where Fnatic choose to fight in the Baron pit with the Kindred ult on top of it. Spirit was so low here that he actually gets helped out here. He goes over, in goes Jankos into the fight, has to selfishly ult himself, and look, Spirit, he had the more proc on it as well, so he was getting healthier and healthier. All this time, Rekkles is dealing damage. Febiven, for the most part, was safe until Vander deals with the problem head-on, flashes over the wall and deals with him. But look, Rekkles is almost full health. This entire fight, he was able to just poke people down from inside the Baron pit after the buff had gone. And look at it, we are about down to 0 for H2K's power play.
Extremely key in that fight. Rekkles, as soon as he saw the fight turning, there were 2 squishy targets in the backline over the Baron pit. He flashed and E'd over the Baron pit to go for both those targets, and he single-handedly picked up 2 kills, which turned the fight.
So despite the fact that H2K have been in control for nearly 30 minutes, Fnatic win a pivotal team fight. They are still down in gold, but it is very, very clear Fnatic's team composition, when they find the right opportunities, can win a fight, and Spirit was low. He was very, very low throughout the entirety of that engage. So this could reset the entire map. Once again, it pushes later and later, more items, more scaling, which actually both of these teams will be very happy about.
They will be. There's a Ryze on one and Azir and an Ezreal on the other. And, you know, from that Baron buff, all that meant was now Odoamne will have the Baroned up minions, and he really wants to be away from the rest of his team. So it means the rest of H2K's push is actually diluted somewhat if he chooses to go to the side lane. He doesn't have his teleport available right now, so that option is a little bit risky, a little flimsy. But H2K want to play multiple lanes, even to the point where Vander has opted for a banner of command because he knows it's going to be difficult for Gamsu and Febiven to clean that out. Only one of them can with that teleport, and H2K playing around the parallel convergence. They don't want to get locked down in that.
They're also playing around just having one person with Baron. It's hard for them because they, as you mentioned, they want a 1-3-1, but they had to group as 5 to try and utilize that on Odoamne. And because it's awkward because he's the tank, he's not really the split pusher. If it was on Ryu, maybe it'd be better, but this is a really unfortunate situation. So they're caught in the mid lane where it's just like, well, we have to do something, and it's like Sundisk, and then they just stand here and play Aaron.
Yeah, Febi's like, what's the time? Oh, time for me to put this up. Like, my passive's up, I got this, guys. And look, even Febi's starting to deal damage to Odo now. This is one of the strengths of the Azir. You break through the tank line very efficiently, and if you don't get taken down, those sand soldiers just keep going.
Ryu looks to be taken down. Vander throws out the lantern and saves Ryu's life. No cost of summoner spells yet, but Fnatic playing very aggressive, very forward, and they continue to put pressure on this middle lane while Gamsu has backed away, as have the rest of Fnatic.
But that situation is exactly what Fnatic want. Everyone grouped up so Rekkles can land poke, Febiven to land poke, and H2K get punished.
But Gamsu has to go bottom lane. The Bannered minion is down there in that bottom lane, stacking up a wave, and Gamsu actually not too bad at clearing it once it was already dropped fairly low by the minions in the wave previously, and now H2K have their opportunity to continue to push. But Fnatic will be constantly looking for decent areas to fight. Both teleports are about up from H2K, so it's their sort of time to divulge which lanes they want to go to, which exactly parts of the map do they want to pressure.
So the last dragon was quasi-contested. Jankos tried to steal that one away or sneak it away, and Fnatic were having none of it. They brute forced him out. That's 30 seconds away from the next dragon spawn, and of course Baron will be up in about 2 to 3 minutes time. Forgiven's gone for a lot of sustain on this build with that Bloodthirster Blade, as well as the Mortius, and of course Rekkles with the QSS, and basically a fully stacked Ezreal build. Has a lot of poke and kite in his utility, as long as he's got some mana to play with. So keep your eyes on that mana bar when this next fight breaks out.
This is going to be a pretty important game, though, for the psyche of Fnatic when you look at their previous results with Azir. They are 0-2. They're split with Azir for Febiven. And, you know, if they can actually win a game with this, it will give them that other option, because if you go 0-3 with a champion, you're like, okay, maybe this just really isn't working for us. Maybe this isn't the pick to play against this team. But Fnatic have managed to claw themselves into a situation where it could work for them. They are still behind, though, and H2K are still looking for opportunities to close. Here comes the teleport into the backline from Odo.
This will be the flank. Who's he going to jump onto? It's going to be Spirit. He dashes away. Gamsu now coming in. Forgiven is being zoned away. Klaj finds him. Ryu gets the first kill onto Spirit. The ultimate out from Febiven. He's looking to tear apart the tree. Odoamne's dropping low. And Forgiven, he's still kiting away. Gamsu finds him. Jumps back to safety. That's the double kill. 4 kills over to Fnatic. That will be the wipe.
Everything's coming up Fnatic in these team fights, and H2K are showing the same weaknesses that cost them a spot in the finals. H2K have fallen apart at the seams in these team fights, and difficult picks to deal with have completely torn them apart.
And how pivotal was not having an exhaust. Gamsu completely soloed Forgiven on their back line. Death timers are up to 45 seconds for H2K, and Fnatic, they've taken down an inhibitor turret. They've taken down an inhibitor. They've set their sights on the Nexus.
They're actually just going straight in for the kill here, guys. And with the death time is so low, there's nothing that H2K can do. The second Nexus tower will fall, and Fnatic find the first win in its best of 5.
Fnatic had to dig deep for that one. A sly grin on the face of Febiven as he turns to his teammates, and they punish H2K in that engage. They punish H2K with a better reactive fight.
Much better team fights. Two, integral fights to winning this game. The Baron fight and then the final fight of the game. It looked like H2K